Yeah, yeah. Hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah.
Welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I have my co hosts along with me.
Well, thank you and welcome tonight. What a great night to be together here on this platform. And because together we win.
Absolutely, Dr. J, and happy birthday. You turned 60, so you're 60 plus 4 days.
Yes. What an incredible time. Incredible celebration. If I'm being honest, I'm recuperating, from it. It was an incredible celebration, time of celebrating 60 years of life and 40 years of ministry and public service. And it was quite an ordeal, quite a fanfare, quite a celebration. And I'm especially grateful to all those that came out to support it and be there. And of course, it would not have been complete without you being there, and you were there, you and your husband Alex, and so many of our friends, confidants, and colleagues, and people over the many years that was there to celebrate with us. And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
Oh, it was an exciting event as well. You're a lot like me. That's why we're besties. It's hard for people to celebrate you and honor you for the work that you've done. I mean, to hear the testimonies of so many individuals that, said how you came to their rescue and how you were there when they needed you and all they had to do was call. And, what a wonderful man and father you are. And you are absolutely all those things. Nothing was exaggerated. And I was, so elated that Bishop Harold Ray was there, and he gave a speech that was, he defined you to a T, as only Bishop Ray can do.
It was incredible. He's probably one of the nation's greatest orators, and his whole depiction, his whole tribute was so touching. It was so touching, and I knew that it came from a great place, and you could tell that they had given much thought to it, and it was amazing. And to think about it, being there and having so many people there to be able to witness this and to be able to see the different ones from different eras and different stages and different places in my life be there at one time. And it was just absolutely incredible. When you look at, you had not only the faith community, Christian community, you had the social services, you had city officials and government, you had those that the educators and different things. So it was quite the event, and I'm just really thankful.
Yeah, I was so happy for you, and didn't get a chance to dance, but
right, boy, I tell you,
but them celebrating you and honoring you was worth it all. It was definitely worth it all.
Yeah.
Like I said, you are so deserving of it. And my husband said, "Has he ever thought about running for office?"
And I'm quite sure you told him that he always said he will run from office.
he always told me he tells me sometimes that I need to run, but we win together.
Okay.
And it is important that I don't know who had a chance to watch the Democratic convention. I had a death in my family, so I was traveling, but I did get a chance to listen to some of the speeches, and I got a glimmer of hope for this nation. I didn't get a chance to catch a lot of the Republican convention, but my message to the individuals that are listening in and will tune in to replay the show is vote. Don't take
Yes.
for granted your right. There's so many aspects of government that I don't think people are aware of, Dr. J. There are three branches of government, which is the executive branch,
Hmm.
which is the president and the
Right.
cabinet he chooses, the like the agents, the judges, and then there's the legislative branch
Yes.
and the judicial branch.
Exactly.
And
Mhm.
then that controls our states, the different states, is you got the senators, the
Yep.
governors, the mayors, then the commissioners,
Yes.
and everybody plays a part in our lives, regardless if we recognize it or not. It is important for us not to just vote for those that are the president of this great United States, but it is important for you to cast your vote locally.
Absolutely.
Together we win. I named the show Together We Win because of the fact that, we have to participate in our rescue.
Right.
If we don't vote for the senators and the governor
Hmm.
and the mayor and the commissioners in our community,
Yes.
we'll be lost. We'll just be, like a tossed salad going
Absolutely.
to and fro. And they are Democrats and they are Republicans and some of them are independents. But you must vote. And guess what? You not voting is voting.
Absolutely. Yeah. To defer your vote or to not vote at all is actually casting a vote. And believe it or not, you're casting a vote without a voice, without your voice being heard. And it's important that you do so. Voting is one of the most, it's the highest democratic. And when I say that, I'm not talking about a party, it's the highest democratic freedom we have. The ability that an individual's voice, their vote, counts. It gives them a voice, if you would, inside of the decisions that are being made. Decisions, the ones that are elected to represent you. We talk about a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Yes. But if the people don't vote, then guess what? They forfeit that ability to determine the outcome of who sits in office, who sits in power. And that's important. And people have to be careful because if you don't take time to know why you're voting, know who you're voting for, understanding the issues there, you could simply be just throwing your vote away. But it's important to know what the issues are. And when I say the issues, I mean the issues, not as some do when they try to focus on one solitary single thing to determine the reason that you will vote. There are so many other reasons. When you think about the welfare of the country, when you think about decision, you think about freedom and democracy, you think about the difference, what makes us who we are. We are a republic, we are an institution, we are all those things. However, the only reason that we've remained those things is because of what we have in place, our Constitution, those laws that governs us. And anytime anyone goes outside of those things, they are threatening. They are threatening your democracy. They are threatening. It's a reason why we're not China. It's a reason why we're not Russia. It's a reason why we're not. We are democracy. We're not an autocrat nation. We're not a communist nation. We are democracy, and that means that we are not ruled by kings. We're not ruled by monarchs. We're not ruled by some autocrat. We are real, once again, a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And we have to be, if you would, stand in alignment with our Constitution. And when we are not in tune, when we're not paying attention, we will find ourselves voting for people who wants to sidestep the Constitution, who wants to replace the Constitution with their own desires. And that's the reason why people have to understand, listen, it matters now. It matters not just by the color of the skin. It matters not just because of the fact a person is loud and rude. You better understand what you're voting for and come together and vote and encourage other people to vote. And that's the time that we live in. We don't have time to sit on the sideline.
Absolutely, Dr. J. Consider our homes. We go to work every day,
Mhm.
we come home, we feed our families, we drive what cars we want to drive if we work and earn them. What if we put someone in place that takes away our ability to provide? Think about the crime rate.
That's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Think about the crime rate that would go up because people will be so desperate that they'll break the law and harm people, even people that they supposedly love, because of the pressure of finances. So it is imperative to us to research individuals that are on the ballot. And again, I say those that are on the ballot, not just president, all those that are on the ballot that are looking for a vote. You have the right to choose someone to win. And the more of us that step up and say, I want to be able to provide for my family. I want affordable health care for my family. I want these taxes to go down for my home. All these insurance rates that are through the roof, where people are being thrown out of their homes. They own their homes, but their ability to come up with the money every month to pay the taxes and insurance on their home has booted them out of places that they've lived over 30, 40 years. And, people say, well, I don't know much about this person. I'm just seeing them on the scene and I don't know what they do. You Google everything else. Google each individual.
Yes.
Research people, see who they are, what they've done, what they haven't done, and cast your vote.
Absolutely.
It's about hope.
Mm-hmm.
We do this because we're hoping to get to another level. We're hoping to be able to be in a country that says we're free, but yet we're in chains because we can't financially provide for our families, and we can't afford health care. We can't afford to drive cars. Then like in California, they're trying to mandate electric cars. You know how expensive those electric cars are? What's going to happen if they allow that to go from state to state?
Right.
If they join in, we got the senators and the governors that govern our states.
Absolutely.
Not just the president. We got the senators, the governors, and the mayors of our community that govern our state because they hold the purse.
Exactly right. And we have to understand, when people are in office, they make decisions. You need to, are they well informed? Have they even heard your voice? And that's another thing. We got to stop throwing our votes out for people who have never, ever had a conversation with us. We don't know where they stand inside of things, and we just cast our vote because of the fact they like the same color we like or some other crazy reason. But we have to understand those decisions impact us. It impacts our ability to live. It impacts our ability to have certain liberties and freedom. It impacts our ability to even to be prosperous in a nation. When you start seeing things happening because of bad decisions and decisions that have been made, you have to ask yourself the question, how much should I know about this individual? Did I really vet this individual? Is this individual one that will listen? One thing I do know is this, is that righteousness exalteth the nation. I know that much. I know that much, that when we find an individual who has a sense of humility, who understands the fact and is concerned with the plight of the poor, the least, the lost, and left out, that individual there recognizes the fact that we have a responsibility. But on the other hand, when we find an individual who's only concerned about the three, me, myself, and I, and only to look out for the rich, in other words, don't even consider everybody else as even people, it's them and everybody else as subjects. You got to be very careful, because that individual has a mindset that they want to be a ruler. They want to be a ruler. No, we don't live in a monarchy. We don't live in that type of system. And so we have to get out and do the right thing. And I know that there are those that may be saying, yeah, but what about the immoral? Let me say something to you. This whole country is immoral. The whole country. The country, unfortunately, was founded on those things, in enslavement and all those things there, things that we refuse to repent of. But the fact that we would think that it's all right to continue to elect somebody who has no degree, no scrupulous about themselves, 34 convicted counts, and that's just with one case. It's have nothing to do with all the other things there. And you all are saying that it's all right. Let's give them another chance. What do you say? What do you say to the young man, the young woman who have lost their ability to vote because they're convicted felon? Because the fact they stole something, they broke into something, they had weed or they sell. So all those things there, they can't even get a decent job. They're not even allowed certain housing. Things are made hard for them. And yet and still, we have somebody who's a convicted felon on every hand. And we want to give them the highest job in the land.
It's a tragedy, but this is what I said, together we win. And you know, unfortunately, Dr. J, there's a lot of people that want that person to win, even as a convicted felon. But does that mean he's going to release all of our young Black men or white men, teens that were arrested when they were teenagers for marijuana? And they caught a case for marijuana, and they're doing a life sentence when there are people that are murdering and get out in like 10 years. What's going to happen to that? And then, not to mention, those that did commit those crimes, they're not going to be able to vote.
Right.
Even they won't be able to vote. So, you know, we have to be very careful. And as I said, you know, people that don't understand the different levels of government and what that means. You know, you can have the president that's a Republican or a Democrat in the House, but if the House is more Republican than Democrat, chances of legislations and bills being passed are going to be hard because of the fact that the one that has the greater power would ultimately win, but there's always going to be a buffer. You know, I'm so grateful that, you know, the last 4 years, it was more of a balance than it has been in a long time.
Right.
This is the most of a balance it's ever been, I believe, since I could remember. So it is imperative that these next 4 years we watch and pray as the word of God tells us to do. And, you know, speaking about the word of God, God's word is going to stand regardless.
Absolutely.
Everything can change. You can put whoever you want in office, but God's word is going to stand. His will be done and performed in the earth now. And he is coming again. It just depends on us putting in our votes and doing how quickly he comes.
Exactly.
You know, we have the power to write our destiny.
Absolutely.
So we want to know how quickly we want him to come. Keep doing what we're doing.
Absolutely.
We are definitely a train wreck in progress. So we have to be able to stand for something and not just fall for anything.
Exactly. And when we think about this for a second. I go back to our vote is our voice. Our vote says, let me be heard. Our vote says, I have a say-so in this matter. Our vote says that I am invested in this process as well. The vote is so important that you think about it. It's been the most fought thing throughout the history of this country. The most fought thing. You think about it. You know, we were not allowed to vote. Counted as a half a person, then a third of a person. Not allowed to vote. And then when the Constitution...
And not only, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. J, but there were men and women that were beaten almost to death.
Yeah, exactly.
So on their way voting.
Right.
So that they were brutalized so badly that they couldn't even make it there to vote because they had been beaten. So that's why it is important to vote.
Exactly. People's lives were on the line for this opportunity, this privilege, so that we can have a voice inside of things. And that's the whole thing about it. Why do you think now voting is such a great privilege to the fact that even when it turns out well, the other side that oppose this go and move the goalposts and try to make up stuff to keep people from being able to vote. They start doing what we call voter suppression, voter suppressing laws. They cut back the days of early voting. They cut back the fact of the way that we could do mail-in ballots. They cut back so many things. In many states, especially this state here, they now require you, I don't care what, you may have had mail-in ballot last election, you got to reapply all over again, like every time,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's meant to be an obstacle to you. Now, they've cut back on days of early voting. They cut back on so many things, and then don't want you to help the elderly. Where they used to have their ballots, and you can go by and pick up their ballots and then take them to the supervisor election and drop them off. Now you're not allowed to do those type things. Voter suppression. Oh no. Now they're scrutinizing your signature to the T.
Yes.
I'm going to say, as a man who signs his name and his signature very, very often, I can tell you that my signature looks different sometimes depending on how I'm feeling, depending whether or not I'm in
how
a good
quickly
mood.
you have to sign.
Exactly, how quickly I have to sign. So it may look different. It's not going to be exactly the same thing. And if you're going to disqualify people because of their signature, those are games. Those are mind games. Early voting is such an important thing for people to do, because what they're dependent on in reducing early voting is the fact of you being discouraged on the day of election to have to stand in that long line. So you decide you're not going to vote, or you walk away and not vote. No.
The enemy is always going to put a distraction in place the day of election.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always going to be an obstacle. You may even come down with an illness. It's always going to be some type of distraction. So I say to you, if you are that person where something is always happening,
early vote.
Do a mail-in ballot.
Exactly.
Apply for one, so that when it comes time to do the early voting, you can go ahead and have your ballot in, and it'll be done, and you won't have to worry about it, be stressed out about the kids acting up, or somebody gotta, get picked up from school, and it is because it's going to be a distraction.
And it's meant to
It's warfare. It is always going to be some warfare. So we have to participate in our rescue. We as a people fail to do that on so many different levels. We fail to participate in our relationships. We fail to participate in our finances. We fail to participate in our own rights.
Because we're expecting abracadabra, and we can't abracadabra this. This is something we have to put our hands to. We have to be a part of that process. And when you start thinking about things like we have to overcome, voter suppression laws are there. You think about the fact, not only voter suppression laws are there, but when you start thinking about little things that is meant to discourage you from voting, little things that are meant to cause you to miss out on such a sacred privilege, you got to wonder why. Why is it that this thing is false? So it is false because they understand your voice is your vote. And no longer is there this clear-cut majority. They understand that really the minority is the majority, but they don't want you to respond that way, because the fact they know that we're better together. And when we're together, we do win. We win. We come together with solidarity and ideas. We come together understanding the fact that there's certain privileges and things that should be there that is going to uplift the country, that is going to make life better for all of us. Is there a perfect system? Absolutely not. But do you have a person that's willing to sit down to discuss, to negotiate, to see the greater good? Or do you have a person who is self-seeking, who think that every day is a reality TV show?
I think we need to get back to caring about our neighbors. First, care about ourselves enough to want to reach out and help somebody else. Because, Dr. J, you have your nonprofit, Destiny by Choice, and I have the Soul of a Woman Foundation. And there are so many people that are going through mental distractions. As I say, they are losing hope. And because they're losing hope, they're taking their lives, and not only just taking their lives, they're taking their spouses and their children's lives too, because they figure, well, if I'm gonna go, I'm just gonna wipe out the whole slate. Let us just be done. But it's not done, because you leave to mourn people that will have to pick up the pieces.
Absolutely.
So us participating in this vote that's coming up is crucial because it will transform a lot of people's lives that are stressed out because of the unknown.
Exactly right. And in this next election, you got to understand, you're not just voting for something for the next 4 years. This election here will determine the trajectory of this country going forward. The trajectory over the next 10 and 15 years will be determined with this 2024 election. It will be determined because of that. And so we have to do the thing. That is part of our process. That is part of what our privilege and obligation is as well. And when we fail to comply, what we're saying is let anything go. But no, don't you owe it to your children? Don't you owe it to your grandchildren? Don't you owe it to them to put them in good hands and make decisions that are going to better them and make things better for them? That is the reason why we should vote. We should vote because of the fact we understand that our voice needs to be heard. And our voice is being heard, our children's voices are being heard. And that's what it is, to be able to participate in this democratic process. And I encourage everyone, each and every one, to make up your mind, I am going to vote. I'm going to study. I'm going to look for a guide that gives me information on each candidate. And I'm going to look at this. I'm going to pray. I'm going to watch, and I'm going to cast my vote. Simple as that. I'm going to make sure I do so. I'm not going to sit around and then start complaining after things go bad, but I never had anything to do with the process. No, not at all.
Absolutely. Dr. J, you have been very instrumental in your community and communities,
Yes.
Across this nation, talking about our rights to vote and also talking about domestic violence. So those that are tuning in and listening in, if you want to book Dr. J to come in and speak at your conference or, your next meeting that you're going to have to find solutions to problems that exist on a national, global level, you can reach out to him at manofpurpose2000@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that time. You hit it on the head. There's so many things that we got to be mindful of. One thing that many people may not understand, our current president, Joe Biden, is one of the major authors of the Violence Against Women Act. We talked about over 30-something years ago, the Violence Against Women Act, which changed the whole game when it came to how domestic violence is handled, how domestic and sexual violence is handled. What are we saying? The power of a vote made a difference there. And let me say something. When you voted for him, it wasn't that he was saving only Democratic women. It was all women.
All women.
All women benefited from that act. And so you have to understand, when you look at policies and you look at people and what they're doing, are they really considering everyone, the least lost and left out? One of the things that you hear one of the candidates talk about is that I will be president for all the people, not just for the ones that voted for me. Not just for the ones that are in my tax bracket, not just for the ones that look like me or the same color. No, you got to be president for all the people. And that's important. That means that you have to have a degree of compassion for people and their plight. It is kind of hard to have compassion sometimes when you've been born with a silver spoon in your mouth. When you never had to work for nothing, when you never had to do anything but, bark orders and do things like that. It's hard to have compassion. You can't relate to a person working for minimum wage. You can't relate to a person who've had to struggle through getting through life. You have not had to do that. So it's hard for you to relate to that. But when you've gone through the fire, when you understand what it is to be humiliated, when you know what the word lack means, oh yeah, it gives you a whole different perspective in the way that you look to govern and legislate things.
Absolutely. The Senate is responsible for passing and amending legislation. So legislation is policies, things that are put on the table, and, it can be passed or they can just trash it and say, okay, we're not going to do this. So, us participating and going out and speaking, educating individuals. And like I said, domestic violence has increased. Dr. J and I are available to do conferences and workshops, et cetera, regarding domestic violence and what that looks like. And it not just the women, but men and children are being affected. It is just, it is at an all-time high. And, I've never seen the state of our communities as it is right now.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like every single day. Just think about what we see on the news and think about it to 100 power.
Exactly. That's all I
We
could.
see one incident on the news, but know and imagine that at least 100 people are
Yeah.
going through it right there in that same community, are
Yes.
going through that same situation. It just didn't make the news.
Exactly. Exactly. Because the fact, not only we talk about the reported case, we talk about the number of cases that are never reported. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean that people aren't suffering silence. Doesn't mean that people are not showing up to work still with a smile on their face, but living in danger. Those things are serious
Absolutely.
things.
And afraid to communicate it because they don't know what will happen if they do. I lived like that. For almost
Yes.
19 years, I lived like that. So I know the fear, I know the intimidation, I know the humiliation that goes along with it, the tears that are cried at night. I know it firsthand. The
And after,
fear of what if he kills me? What will be next? What will happen to my children? All of those things would run through my head every single day. And
yeah,
even in the midst of it, trying to make sure that I was able to work and be able to feed my children and provide for them. And I was able to do that because I had a no matter what attitude,
my
because
mind.
I wanted to win, not just win for me. I wanted to win for my children. So we have to take courage. But in order to take courage, we need to have this right people in office so that we won't feel that we'll succumb to what our reality is of negativity right now.
You know
We
what?
want to go higher. We need to go higher. We must go higher. And we must do it together in order to win.
Together, we win. Simple as that. Together, we win. We have to be able to sort out what our differences are, embrace those differences, and let's work together. We win.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And one of the things we want to make sure that people know is they must participate in voting. They must participate in their rescue. And again, if you want to book Dr. J to come and talk about, things that are happening in our community as it relates to domestic violence and stuff, you could always reach out to him at manofpurpose2000@gmail.com. And also mine's is arise by VNP at hotmail.com. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in to Hot Topics from the Soul. And remember, every vote counts.
Absolutely.
Hot topics from the soul. Hot topics from the soul.